Morning, kids. Today's book read is going to be Hermie the Hermit Crab, and it's by Andrea Weathers, and it's illustrated by Bob Thames. And back here we have a picture of the USS Hunley. The Hermie the Hermit Crab grows up in the Charleston Harbor. After the book read, I want you to do some research on the USS Hunley. Get your parents to help you. What is the USS Hunley? When Hermie the hermit crab was a baby hermit crab, he lived in the warm water of the Atlantic Ocean, just off the coast of Charleston, South Carolina. He was very tiny at this stage of his life, measuring only 1/8 of an inch in length. He was called a zoea. Hermie spent these carefree days eating and floating along with his brothers and sisters, hidden in a clump of sargassum seaweed that provided food and shelter for growing crabs. They were drifting towards Folly Beach. As Hermie ate and grew larger, he molted to shed his outer covering, known as his exoskeleton. Then a new one grew in its place. But Hermie wasn't happy. You see, the young hermit crab did not weigh enough to sink to the bottom of the ocean. Hermie wished that he were older and bigger so that he could travel on all four of his own legs. It was hard for Hermie to be patient and not to be in such a hurry to grow up, and he didn't have a place to call home. As Hermie passed by the narrow island of Folly, the rhythmic sounds of beach music drifted across the water from the Folly Beach fishing pier. Smiling couples were dancing the shag, while a pair of dancing dolphins jumped above the water, and Hermie grew a little larger. See here we have Folly Pier. You can see they're dancing up here. We got some fishing, and there's the dolphins. In Charleston Harbor, Hermie approached the point of the peninsula known as the Battery. Several sassy seagulls stood on the sturdy railing, just waiting to spot a fish below, and Hermie grew a little larger. You can see the Battery right here. We got some houses. Two handsome horses pulled a covered carriage down the East Bay Street, past the historic three-story homes with their joggling boards and hidden flower gardens, and Hermie grew a little larger. I've been down in Charleston before and see the horses pulling the carriages. We can see a tour guide right there. The old exchange building still housed a dimly lit dungeon in its damp basement. Hermie shuddered when he thought of the fearless pirates like Stede Bonnet, confined here at one point for their crimes. A colorful, majestic macaw perched on his stand, and Hermie grew a little larger. Let's see some pirates. Oh, there's his macaw. Oh, that's a cannon. Outside, a small group of people gathered on the sidewalk. A curious cat sitting beside a lamppost listened to her favorite Charleston ghost story, and Hermie grew a little larger. See, we got family on a ghost tour. You can take a ghost tour once Charleston opens back up. At the old marketplace on Market Street, Hermie watched the talented ladies weaving and selling their homemade sweet grass baskets. A hungry flock of plump pigeons hurried about the street for scraps of food, and Hermie grew a little larger. We're down at the market making some sweet grass baskets. And once Charleston opens up, you can go down there and you can watch them make these traditional baskets. It's very cool. At the Charleston Maritime Center, a family of awesome otters played alongside a visiting tall schooner. and Hermie grew a little larger. We got the otters down here, and we got the boat right here. Oh, there's a nice pier. Hermie admired the great blue heron in his outdoor home on the top floor of the South Carolina Aquarium, and Hermie grew a little larger. It's a big bird right there, very big bird. Across the Cooper River at Patriots Point, Hermie coasted past the aircraft carrier, the Yorktown. A loggerhead sea turtle watched Hermie and his friends as they drifted by the stately ships, and Hermie grew a little larger. You can see the Yorktown. There's another ship back there. That's for the Coast Guard. Heading south, Hermie gazed up at Sullivan's Island Lighthouse. A local fisherman and his respectful retriever motored past Hermie in their fishing boat, and Hermie grew a little larger. There's the lighthouse, still in operation today. See the boat. Oh, there's his pet dog. Finally, Hermie entered his last stage of childhood and became too heavy to stay afloat anymore. Now he was known as a megalops. While Hermie was several miles south of Sullivan's Island, he sank to the bottom of the ocean. Well, almost to the bottom. Hermie landed on a rusted iron shipwreck, half buried in the mud, that had obviously been there for years. While Hermie was sitting on top of the famous Confederate submarine named the H.L. Hunley. Now, what would he do? There's the Hunley. Hermie slid down the curved side of the famous sub to the ocean floor. The happy hermit crab tried out his 2 pairs of walking legs for the very first time. They worked. Now he was free to walk wherever he wanted to go without having to depend on the ocean currents for transportation. Hermie felt great respect for his place, where the Hunley had rested since February 17, 1864. He had made a mental note to remember where this sub was located. You can see some reefs starting to form. But Hermie had a new problem. Now that he was a juvenile crab, the back of his body was soft and he needed protection from predators. Hermie had to scurry across the sandy floor of the ocean and hide rather quickly under a bright yellow bush coral to escape the watchful eyes of a suspicious-looking spadefish. He needed something to wear on his back, something that he could also carry with him. You see the spadefish? Look, he's eyeballing the hermit crab. What do you think the spadefish wanted to do? I think he wanted to eat him. I think he wanted to eat the hermit crab. While exploring near Folly Beach, Hermie wandered about the rocks and corals and couldn't believe his eyes. He discovered a whole community of hermit crabs, just like him, but sporting many different kinds of shells. They came in all sizes and shapes. There were snail shells, periwinkle shells, whelk shells, tulip shells, and many others. Hermie knew that he needed one of these colorful shells, and he wanted to fit in and become part of this group. See if you can point out all the different types of shells. A fellow hermit crab in an Atlantic moon snail shell had just discovered an empty whelk shell. He was measuring the vacant shell with his two antennae and front pinchers. Then he jumped out of his shell and into the empty one so fast that Hermie almost missed the exchange. The hermit crab must have liked the new shell because he darted away, leaving the old one behind. Let's see where the other one left that hermit crab shell. Took a new one. Hermie still doesn't have a shell. Hermie approached the abandoned shell and looked it over. It seemed to be about the right size. It was pretty beige, shell marked with violet swirls resembling a shark's eye. He liked the outside and he decided to climb inside for a peek. The inside was smooth and it fit just fine. Hermie held on to the shell with his smaller back legs. He stuck his longer front legs out and took a few steps. To his surprise, walking with the shell on his back was very easy. Now Hermie had a house for protection and one that he could carry with him. You can see Hermie found himself a hermit crab shell. Hermie was exhausted from the excitement of seeing the sights of Charleston, learning to walk, discovering the lost Hunley submarine, and finding his first shell, and a place to call home. Growing up was a wonderful adventure. He backed all the way inside his new house, blocked the entrance with his larger claw, and settled down for a much-needed rest. Good night, Hermie. See the sun starting to set. You can see Charleston in the background. Can you see Charleston in the background back here? That's the old Cooper River Bridge, and a lighthouse. The end. Again, this was Hermie the Hermit Crab. Y'all have a great day.